this one we're going to look at multiplying fractions. So we've got a third times by a half equals. Now what that means is we are finding a third of a half. So if you folded a piece of paper in half, you would then be finding a third of that. So to work this out with fractions, you times your numerators together. So 1 times 1. You times your denominators together. So 3 times 2. 1 times 1 we know is 1. 3 times 2 is 6. So our answer to a third times a half is a sixth, because when you find a third of a half, it'd be a sixth. So our next example, we've got a quarter times by 2/3. So to work this out, we times our numerators, 1 times 2. We times our denominators, 4 times 3, which will give us 2 over 12. And of course we can simplify that because they're both even numbers. So how many 2's go into 2? 1. How many 2's go into 12? 6. So a quarter times by 2/3 is actually a sixth, the same as the previous answer. Okay, we've now got 2.5 times by a third equals. Now there are two ways you can do this. One way, which is longer, you multiply this fraction out first. So you've got 2 times 2 is 4, so that is 4 over 2 times by a third, which will give you 4 over 6. Your other way to do this would be, there's an imaginary 1 there because we've only got 1/3. So we could times our whole numbers together first, which will give us 2, then times our fractions together, which will give us 1 over 6. So your questions to have a go at are 2/3 times by 4 over 2, 5/9 times by 3/5, and 12 over 15 times by a half. Let's have a look at the answers then. So we're timesing tops and tops, bottoms and bottoms. You're timesing the numerators together. So 4 times 2 will give you 8. 3 times 2 will give you 6, which we could then simplify to a mixed number. So we'd have 2 over 6 left, and then we could then simplify that to 1 and 1/3. The next one, we've got 5 times 3, which is 15, 9 times 5, which is 45. We can then simplify that because 5 goes into both 15 and 45. It is a common factor. So we've got 3. And how many 5's go into 45? 9. Of course, we can then simplify that again. So we can do how many 3's go into 3? 1. How many 3's go into 9? 3. And finally, we've got 12 times 1, which is 12. 15 times 2, which is 30. So we could simplify that because we can halve them both. So that would be 6 over 15.